contact is in fact that. And so you come and by some means you study the situation on this planet that you want to penetrate. And what comes to you is you say, well, they have a curious lacuna in their epistemology. They intoxicate themselves chemically and do not apply the ordinary rules of evidentiary completion to these episodes of intoxication. Therefore, we will design a chemical approach. We will seed ourselves into the environment and place ourselves in a dimension where they only encounter us in this domain of sanctioned peculiarity. In other words, we will hide behind the pink elephants. And then because it is like that, it is very much like that. Any of you have dealt with the mushroom. I mean, it presents itself, it's incredibly kind to the beginner. And it presents itself in this cheerful, almost nursery-like, almost absurdly beguiling kind of mode. It's like, welcome, come in. We're all having fun here. You come too. Orange juice? But as time goes on, you learn that no surface is the bottom, and that it has these aspects to its personality, and I think that I don't know. I just saw with great clarity the other night how this would be the strategy of a supermind. It would not come in 3D. It would come through the mental dimension. It would either come through dream or it would come through an intoxication of some sort. And shamanism, these people have adjusted to this. I mean, this is the faith of shamanism. For 100,000 years, people have been going into trance and talking to spirits. And, you know, we only got rid of this notion 300 years ago in a civilization so ass backward that we're murdering the planet. So how sure can we be that this concept of spirit doesn't actually hold some water? Yeah.
So what keeps contact free unless the primate race can move in?
Well, it's deepening is what's happening. Whatever this thing is, it's patient. And it's willing to take 1,000,000 years to reveal its true agenda. So what it starts out is it says, you can be my friend. I'll tell you what the weather is going to be next week. I'll tell you where the reindeer have gone. You can use this information to become a high mucky-muck in your social group. And furthermore, I will tell you how to set bones, how to treat disease, so forth and so on. So what it is they're mean traders. They trade knowledge for what? That's the question. Involvement. They want involvement. They are somehow running the connection. We aren't. In other words, they decided to initiate it. They designed these compounds or somehow insinuated themselves into this mental dimension. They have a plan. We don't know the plan. And it seems to be, in a nutshell, something about condensation of the word. Their program is a program of linguistic reformation. They are the bearers of the news that language can become a thing seen. They are the purveyors of a higher order of the logos. And what all this means is very hard to say. Science is, in a sense, sold us short in this dimension. We're not in as opportune a position to understand this as rainforest ayahuasqueros are, or pygmies singing in the rainforest. It's really the radio apart to find the little people. And I learned from that experience that, I think of the mushroom as the transmitter, but it may be the alien itself. I mean, it's very hard to say. We've had this discussion before about how if you were able, that since 1950 we've been aware of the existence of DNA, and we already, some 40, 50 years later, whatever it is, are on the brink of the human gene sequencing project. Well, any species which could claim intelligence would, part of intelligence, by definition, I would think, is knowing your complete genetic sequence. And what that places in your hands is the possibility of designing yourself. And when you take that point of view and look at the mushroom may have started out as a gorilla or a salamander or a coral reef or anything else. But at some point in its evolutionary history, it took conscious control of what it looks like. And so here it is. It's the perfect organism. All fungi are what are called primary decomposers. They only live on dead matter. Comparing that to vegetarianism, vegetarianism looks like an orgy of slaughter compared to this style of relating to the environment. And then, it has this cobwebby structure. It touches reality so lightly, and yet it can spread through acres. It can weigh more than a sperm whale. It is so tenacious that probably the star itself would have to explode to eliminate fungi from this planet. So it's a strange contradiction of enormous endurance and strength. The spores can percolate through interstellar space, and yet, it's diaphanous, ephemeral, hardly more than a cobweb.
You talked yesterday about Englishing the unspeakable, or someone used that terminology. Have you ever really thought about the story that you're telling, or articulated like a circular, causal, connected way about the whole story? Something about the very nature of what we're talking about seems like there's a whole other way to see yourself. You want to talk about time like that. Time sure doesn't look that way to me on both sides. Is there some other way?
Well, actually, the notes I made this morning for talking in case questions didn't carry us home to Mama had to do with this, a psychedelic cosmology. No. See, I think that what psychedelic thinking can contribute to that kind of question is the realization that time is not driven by causality. The big news is that teleology has to return to models of how reality works. What I mean by teleology is purpose. And let me explain briefly the history of this problem. When Darwin invented evolution in the 19th century, it was possible to call yourself an English intellectual and actually believe that the planet came into existence on September the 4th, 4004 BC. That was a respectable intellectual opinion in British parlors of 1850. Darwin, the whole intellectual world was under the spell of deism. The idea that the universe was the creation of a benevolent God who was guiding it from its birth to its death. And Darwin opposed it and said in the phenomenon of random mutation and natural selection, no evolution, strangely enough, has come to mean progress. But in the 19th century, it meant the opposite of progress. Evolution meant change without progress, because progress implies that you are vectoring on some kind of goal. And the idea was that nature was not vectoring on some kind of goal. It was simply a proliferation of form. The problem is, and they took that to the limit in order to overthrow deism. And it probably was a necessary episode in Western intellectual history. But it is now dragging us back. We've gotten rid of God. We don't, as a secular society, we don't have the benevolent God that the 19th century was laboring under. But we need to preserve this concept of purpose. And where it's coming from in secular scientific and mathematical thinking is in the domain of chaos dynamics and the concept of attractors, which are maximizable goals in the evolutionary in the evolution of a system, but that lie forward in time. And I maintain that in order to understand what is happening on this planet, you have to begin to play with a kind of dynamical attractor notion. What has happened to us as a species, let's just pick a date, let's say 1 million years ago, the tractor beam of the alien latched onto us. And from that moment, we have been moved inexorably through a script that has drawn us deeper and deeper and deeper into an involvement with matter, into global connectivity, into the elaboration of codes and symbols. These are all things which the animal world knows nothing of on the scale that we are involved in these things. History is the distortion of animal life that goes on for about 25,000 years before an animal species is transmogrified into something incomprehensible. The nature of the alien contact is human history. That's the footprint of the fact that ordinary biological and geological processes on this planet have been intersected by something that is coming from another dimension. And the reason it's so hard for us to see is because, we're so ephemeral. I mean, we live 70 years and then we're gone. And until very recently, there were no historical records. I mean, we're just beginning to put in place a picture of how weird our circumstance actually is. Human history is a phase transition of incredible brevity. It is inconceivable to think of human history meandering forward 500, 1,000, 5,000 years into the future. How can it be when we're already talking about turning ourselves into fruit flies and downloading ourselves into gold ytterbium cubes buried at the heart of Copernicus or something like that? With stuff like that on the agenda, the notion that you could conceive a future 500 years of extrapolation of present trends is impossible. we're coming up on some kind of a bifurcation where we're either going to have to make a choice in favor of waterfalls and pristine beaches, or, our electronic coral reefs that stretch from Boston to Atlanta and stuff like that. And it's very hard. It's a Gnostic choice. The New Age, we always like to get rid of all of our differences. Well, here's one where I don't think you can cut it both ways. Are we the caretakers of the earth? And is it our destiny to preserve all of this and enfold ourselves back into it? Or is that simply like feeble nostalgia for the moon, and we're headed someplace that you can't even wrap your mind around? I don't know. I think every sane person feels that tension in their personality, because the techno allure is demonic. Those shiny surfaces and flickering screens, and it has this weird sadomasochistic glitter coming off of it. That's real. You're not kidding yourself. That is really there. And yet it's coming out of us, And then the preservation of nature. You can think of different scenarios, ranging from the very practical. If we really see, the question comes down to reason or faith, or not faith exactly, but reason or miracle. If there is not going to be a miracle, then we are in deep, deep trouble. We've talked in some of these groups about what I call the one woman, one child option. If you don't believe there's going to be a miracle, that might work, because it would cut the Earth's population in half in 40 years, liberate women the way no rhetoric or political policy ever could. But that's a response where you still believe in management. You still believe that you are in control of where everything is headed. If in fact what is happening is not that we are the fructifying consequences of original sin or something like that, but that instead nature itself is undergoing some kind of crisis. In other words, we tend to assume that and take responsibility for the crisis on this planet. But it may be that this is what planets are for, that they seed intelligence into the universe in a process that usually leaves that planet a smoking ruin. Because the mushroom said this once to me. I was moaning something, and it said, "You shouldn't worry. This is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars." It's not a simple matter to go from picking bananas in the tropical rainforest to building something the size of Manhattan that you propose to propel at 90% of the speed of light out to Alpha Centauri. It's just hair-raising to even contemplate this kind of thing. So it's a real question. We don't, and probably a question we won't be asked to answer, because the decision is being collectively made every hour, every day by